Well, welcome to the 700 Club. It's decision day in Georgia. You remember the song, The Devil Went Down to Georgia? They're supposed to stop the devil in that state. We'll see what happens. Well, voters are making history as they determine who will control the Senate. Political heavy hitters from both sides stumped the state yesterday. So why is it such a big deal? Eric Phillips reports from Georgia on what's really at stake.
Well, good morning. I'm here at the Cobb County Civic Center where we've seen a steady stream of voters heading in to cast their ballots. The polls here opening at 7 o'clock this morning. But over the last 48 hours, we've seen the president, vice president, president-elect, and vice president-elect all making their way here to Georgia. And if the election season is a drama, President Trump performed the final scene, stumping for Senators Loeffler and Perdue in Dalton, Georgia last night.
Radical Democrats are trying to capture Georgia's Senate seats so they can wield unchecked, unrestrained, absolute power over every aspect of your lives. Our mission here in Georgia is to make sure the radical left cannot rob you of your voice and your votes in Washington. You can't lose.
The president defiant as ever on election eve.
And they're not taking this White House. We're going to fight like hell, I'll tell you right now.
Earlier in the day, Vice President Pence was in Milner, Georgia, rallying the electorate.
For our faith, for our freedom, we need you to vote, Georgia. Vote to send David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler back to the United States Senate.
President-elect Biden also brought his influence here Monday, campaigning for Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock in Atlanta.
The power is literally in your hands. Unlike any time in my career, one state can chart the course, not just for the next 4 years, but for the next generation.
His number 2 in Savannah just a day before.
I'm here to thank you on behalf of Joe and myself for what you did in November, and I'm here to ask you to do it again.
People CBN News spoke to on the street seemed to understand the gravity of this moment.
This is a monumental moment. I'm proud to be a Georgian right now, and I think we're going to make a difference.
A lot on the line. Some people think it's a big deal, some don't, but I think it's a big deal in my opinion.
People are not voting enough, so I feel like it's important to push it to annoy people so that they'll actually go out and do it.
Voting is important, but then every day just doing what you can to help people and know that the work is never really done. You just got to keep going.
And Cobb County is an interesting place because it was always strongly red, but then flipped blue back in November. Everyone's wondering if that same thing will happen during this election. Of course, we will likely not know the results of this election when the polls close tonight. First of all, absentee ballots still need to be counted, but also officials will likely be extremely meticulous in how they carry out this election, knowing that it is extremely close. Pat.
Eric, I understand there's been a tremendous effort to get Christians to turn out. I don't know if Ralph Reed and the Faith and Freedom Coalition, but what do you hear about that?
Yeah, well, you had Ralph Reed and the Faith and Freedom Coalition sending out thousands and thousands of emails, text messages, knocking on doors, going to churches, making sure that people were registered to vote in churches all over the state. They had a massive effort going, but also Billy Honor and those who were on the left, Democratic leading, also had a very strong get out the vote effort for Christians specifically. That's because they know that Christians make up a very significant segment of the voting bloc and that no candidate can win without the buy-in from Christians. So certainly believers across this state were the targets of all political parties and all of those who are trying to make sure that they are victorious in today's election, Pat.
What kind of action are being taken to monitor the counting?
Well, you know, one thing that when I spoke to Ralph Reed, I was here about a month or so ago, and when I spoke to Ralph Reed, he was very insistent that one thing that they are doing different this time around than they did during the November election is they're making sure that they have people in place who are watching the counting, who are watching the verification of signatures, who are trained volunteers that are going to be on the ground inside polling places like this one on Election Day to just oversee and to verify and to make sure that everything is going the way that it should, such that you won't have the questions that you have right now where the November election is concerned about alleged fraud or any type of impropriety. And so you had that going on both sides. When I say both sides, I'm talking about Christians who may be leaning Republican and Democrat. You see a bunch of folks who have now been trained, who are here, who are watching, and who are making sure that this process runs smoothly.
Last question about when we'll know the results. I mean, it's not going to be something quick. The absentee, will it be sometime tomorrow? Maybe we'll know the results, or can it be tonight?
The possibility of it being tonight, Pat, I would say very slim. We may know more by tomorrow. I would say certainly by the end of this week. But it's really tough to say for sure. But considering all the factors, considering what Georgia is marred in right now in terms of still dealing with the November election, the Secretary of State here in Georgia under fire, lots of questions swirling about any possible improprieties where elections are concerned. I think you're going to see a concerted effort to cross every T and dot every I, and that will likely mean taking a few extra days to announce the winner in this contest. I would say certainly by the end of the week, could be as soon as tomorrow. We're certainly keeping our eye on it.
Eric, thanks for your reporting on this important story. Well, in other news, Wednesday, all eyes turned to Washington, where Republican lawmakers will challenge the presidential election. What key role does Vice President Pence have in the process, and what message is President Trump sending him? John Jessup has that story.
Thanks, Pat. The challenge is testing the Republican Party, with several GOP leaders coming out against it, and the president making a public appeal to Mike Pence. CBN's Jenna Browder has the story.
President Trump was fired up at his rally Monday night in Georgia, saying he won't give up his fight to overturn the election.
When you win in a landslide and they steal it and it's rigged, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable.
Senator Ted Cruz is leading at least a dozen Republican senators in a challenge to certification. Some 140 House members are doing the same. Georgia's Senator Kelly Loeffler, whose fate will be decided in today's runoff election, promising to join in the challenge.
I have an announcement, Georgia. On January 6th, I will object to the Electoral College vote. That's right. That's right. Thank you. We're going to get this done.
The president also called out Vice President Mike Pence, who's constitutionally appointed to oversee the certification process. Pence has said he welcomes lawmakers using their authority to raise objections and present evidence.
You know, and I hope Mike Pence comes through for us, I have to tell you. I hope that our great vice president comes through for us. He's a great guy. Of course, if he doesn't come through, I won't like him quite as much.
The issue is dividing the Republican Party, with several leaders objecting to the protest, including Senator Tom Cotton, who said it would establish unwise precedents and take a step towards federalizing election law. Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council, says no matter the outcome of the challenge, state legislatures need to examine their systems.
We need to have major investigation, hearings into this, and then at the state level and even at the federal level, changes to our election law to ensure that the American people can have confidence in the outcome of elections.
As to the leaked phone call from Trump to the Georgia Secretary of State, Perkins said Trump is giving voice to his anger. Monday, a Georgia election official addressed point by point Trump's claim of fraud in Georgia, saying the state was right to certify its vote. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
The drama continues to unfold. Thanks, Jenna. Pat, back to you.
Remember, the big day comes out when the Congress certifies those electors, and it ain't over until it's over, and it's not over yet. So should the president challenge? Absolutely. I mean, in my opinion, this thing has been rigged. I think that there's a great deal of, if not outright fraud, there's certainly been some improprieties where election officials have not followed the constitutions of their own states. So the Congress is supposed to consider that before they certify the election. But the Lord himself can answer the prayers of his people. And God's never late, but sometimes he takes you right to the brink. You're getting ready to fall off a cliff, and the Lord says, hey, I'll send an angel, I'll catch you. So let's hope some angels are out there working overtime between day and tomorrow when that certification comes through. John?
Pat, turning to health news, as coronavirus cases continue to surge, vaccine companies are ramping up production to make more doses available. Moderna has increased its COVID-19 vaccine production by 20%. That means about 600 million vaccines. The move comes as a new variant of the virus is spreading. In the United Kingdom, that highly infectious variant forcing another nationwide lockdown. However, it's not believed to be more deadly or resistant to vaccines. Well, here in the United States, a Wisconsin pharmacist is in custody, a Wisconsin pharmacist in custody for allegedly destroying 57 doses of the Moderna vaccine, told authorities he believes it will mutate people's DNA. Health experts say, though, there is no truth to those claims. Well, a breakthrough in the Middle East brokered by the Trump administration as Saudi Arabia and the tiny nation of Qatar re-engage. Qatar's ruling emir is in Saudi Arabia for a summit of Arab leaders. This after an announcement that the kingdom is ending its embargo and reopening airspace and land and sea borders with its neighbor. Saudi Arabia and other Arab nations had accused Qatar of supporting terrorism and moving closer to Iran. The new agreement is seen as a first step in bringing Qatar back into the fold and increasing leverage against Iran. President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, helped to negotiate the deal. Pat, an ever-changing Middle East landscape.
Well, it's interesting, again, how the nations are lining up in fulfillment of biblical prophecy. That's what I've been looking at. And, you know, these things are going to happen. I waited on one thing. Jerusalem shall be trodden underfoot by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles were fulfilled. Well, that prophecy was fulfilled in the Six-Day War. So some other things are happening, and I'm looking at Ezekiel 38. All right.